What's going on there, YouTube? Welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we're going to continue our coverage over Batman Knightquest. Now remember, this is the second part in the Nightfall trilogy. Now when it comes to Knightquest, it's really more us seeing John Paul Valley being the Batman of Gotham City, but over time becoming darker, but also more aggressive than the previous Batman, Bruce Wayne. Now with that being said, in our last few videos when it comes to Batman Knightquest, it's really more of John Paul Valley trying to chase down one particular villain, and that would be Abattoir. Now, we had actually talked about this character in our last few videos. Now, when it comes to Abattoir, he's one of those C-list characters in DC Comics, especially in Batman comics. Now, when it comes to Abattoir, his main goal is to go after his entire family, to kill them off. And the reason why? Because he feels like his family is truly evil. And so his main goal right now, like I said, is to kill off his entire family. Now, when it comes to Abattoir, in a previous video, him and Batman actually fought against one another. And the reason why, because for Abattoir, he was able to hunt down one of his cousins, and that would be Graham. Now, Graham was actually running for mayor of Gotham City, but he also was on a camping trip with a bus full of children. Either way, when it came to Abattoir, he was trying his best to kill off his cousin. But luckily for Graham, Batman had arrived. Now for Batman, he had no choice but to go ahead and save the lives of the children, but also Graham. But while doing that, well, Abattoir got away once again. And so is Batman right now just trying his best to hunt down Abattoir to hopefully and finally bring him in. Now this two-part story arc is not really about Abattoir, it's about two other characters who have not been seen in a good while by this point in DC Comics, especially in Batman comics, and that would be the Clayfaces. Now, before we are able to dive into the whole idea of the Clayfaces coming after Batman, we have to jump over to Leslie Tompkins. Now, when it comes to Leslie, she has huge connections to Bruce Wayne, the previous Batman, but she has almost no connections to the current Batman, John Paul Valley. Now, when it comes to Leslie, she was called in because those boys who saw Batman fight against Abattoir were kind of scarred by that battle. They almost died because the bus had almost crashed and had almost killed them. But luckily, Batman has saved their lives. Either way, you have Leslie right now trying to be that therapist for them and kind of help them get through what they had went through in recent hours with Batman fighting against Abattoir. Now, Graham is there as well, but for Graham, it's more of like, listen, I need you to focus on them. I'm okay, but these boys right here, they are young. They still have their entire lives ahead of them. And I hate the idea that they were scarred by seeing Batman fighting against Abattoir, but almost dying on that bus as well. Now, for John Paul Valley, who is the current Batman at this point in DC Comics, his main goal is to find Abattoir and to hopefully bring him in for the crimes that he had committed, but to also make sure that he does not have the ability to go out of his way to kill off other family members. Now, with that being said, when it comes to Batman, while just traveling around Gotham City, well, out of nowhere, he's actually attacked by a gargoyle. Now, this seems a tad bit weird, but this brings in the first of two Clayfaces that we are going to see in today's video. Now, this Clayface is actually Lady Clayface, and really, I feel like we need to sit down and talk a tad bit more about Lady Clayface and her place in DC Comics. Now, just in case you are a tad bit confused of why I called her Lady Clayface and not just Lady Clay, because in DC Comics, she goes by both names. Now, with that being said, when it comes to Lady Clayface, she is actually the fourth Clayface by this point in DC Comics. And there were plenty more that came after her in the late 1990s going into the early 2000s. Now, with all that being said, for Lady Clayface, the only reason why she had gained her powers because she was changed by the Cobra cult. Now, really, she had agreed to go through one of their experiments. And the reason why, because she hated her face. She wanted a different face. And so once she went through the actual experiment, well, it changed her into Lady Clayface. But getting back over to the main story, we see her attacking Batman. Now, it does seem like she does not really want to attack him at all, but she's being forced to actually battle against him. And the question is right now, why are you being forced to fight against Batman if you don't want to? Now, we also learned that apparently she had been missing for a good while since her last appearance in DC Comics. And the question is right now, where has she been for this long? And so we learned that apparently when it came to Lady Clayface, she has been hanging out with Clayface 3. Now, Clayface 3 is a tad bit different from the other Clayfaces, and let me explain. You see, when it comes to Clayface 3, he was actually somebody who was born in a way where his body appearance was not very appealing to other people. And matter of fact, as he grew up, he began to hate the way he looked. And so what he did was he hunted down Matt Hagen, the second Clayface, to collect a blood sample from him and to use that blood sample as a way to gain Clay-like abilities like Matt Hagen has or Lady Clayface. Either way, when he tried to use that blood sample, it made his body even worse. You see, thanks to that blood sample, it did change Clayface. It began to melt his body away, turning him into a clay-like character. But on top of that, he also gained corrosive touch, meaning that if he touched you, he could easily melt you. And so at first, it was so much for him to handle. The whole idea that one, he looked even worse after using that blood sample, but also now he could no longer touch people thanks to his corrosive touch. But we also learned that if he does not go out of his way to kind of release his corrosive touch onto other people, his body will begin to feel a huge amount of pain. So much pain that he'll have a hard time trying to control it, to get over it. And so he has no choice to go ahead and touch other people to kind of release that pain in his body. But apparently Clayface 3 and Lady Clayface, they have been hanging out with one another and building a, well, relationship with one another. Now, as we jump back over to the battle between Batman and Lady Clayface, it does go back and forth for a few more pages, but then kind of like, listen, if she's back in Gotham, that means that the other Clayface, Clayface 3, must also be back in Gotham as well. And the question is right now, where is he? And why did both Clayfaces come back to Gotham for? What in the world is currently going on? And so we learned that for Clayface 3, he's also in Gotham, but for some strange reason, he's going after Graham. And the question is right now, why in the world is Clayface 3 going after Graham for? Is there some kind of connection between Clayface 3 and Abattoir as well? Are they possibly related to one another in some kind of weird way? Now we do get another flashback, and really this flashback is being used as a way to explain what were the Clayfaces doing while they were away from Gotham City. Now we do learn that apparently both the Clayfaces were together building up that Clayface relationship, but they were hiding out in a cave away from Gotham City. But like I said earlier, when it comes to Clayface 3, if he does not release that corrosive energy inside his body, he'll begin to feel pain all over his body. And so one night for Lady Clayface, she woke up and realized that he was gone. And the reason why, because he went outside and pretended to be a hitchhiker. Somebody had actually pulled over thinking they need to help him, but in reality, he grasped him and melted him away completely as a way to release his corrosive energy. And so he realized that unfortunately, even though he wants to be with Lady Clayface, he still needs to kill somebody every once in a while to release that corrosive energy inside of him. But to continue on with the flashback, we do learn that apparently after they realize that the only way to kind of help out Clayface 3 is to find a cure for his disease. Now, technically, the disease he has came from Clayface 2 blood sample, but either way, they can't find any kind of cure at all. But the two of them don't want to give up. They want to find a way to save his life. And the reason why? Because Clayface 3 was able to, well, get Clayface 4, Lady Clayface, pregnant. They're going to be parents. And so it seemed like maybe they came to Gotham because she is pregnant, or possibly because, well, they had the baby. But we then jump back over to the present day. And when we do, we pick back up with Clayface 3 just fighting his way over to Graham by killing off officers one by one. Just by touching them, they melt away completely. Now for Leslie, she want to try her best to protect Graham, but Graham's all like, nah, it's not worth your life to try to protect me. Right now, let him go ahead and take me away. Let him kidnap me because I need you alive to take care of the boys who still need you as their therapist. And so just like that, Clayface 3 grabs Graham and they get the heck out of there. But again, we're still wondering, why did he grab Graham for? But the last page of the first chapter of the story arc is really more of us seeing Batman possibly dying here, because you do have Lady Clayface change her body in a way where she's kind of like a snake squeezing the body of Batman, slowly going to break him and possibly killing him off. But as we dive into the next chapter, we learn that John Paul Valley was able to hit a button. Now, the only reason why he was able to hit that button is because for Lady Clayface, she was still kind of unsure about the idea of killing off Batman. So while she was kind of relaxing her body, he was able to hit that button to release a huge amount of energy to shock her, but to also knock her out. So Batman survives. But now we jump back over to Clayface 3. Now, when we do pick up with Commissioner Gordon and his team arriving to realize that, yes, Clayface 3 is back in the city once again. Now, the question is right now, why did he grab Graham? What was the actual purpose of him going after Graham for? There must be a special reason. But when we jump over to Clayface 3, he's trying his best to hide from the cops. But now he must take Graham over to somewhere else. But now we have to jump over to Abattoir. Now, when we do, we actually see him with a baby. It's kind of like, okay, is this baby possibly the child of the Clayfaces, or could this child, this baby, be related to Abattoir in some kind of way? Because remember, his main purpose in life right now is to kill off every single member of his family. Now, for the baby, he's crying because he wants his mom. He wants his dad. And so you have Abattoir say, you know what? Let me sit down and read you a story from your mom's book, your mom's diary. Now, really, this flashback is really more about the idea of seeing the Clayfaces go through the pregnancy. This flashback is all about them, but it is the story that Abattoir is telling the young boy. Now, we do learn that while you have the Clayfaces trying to get through the actual pregnancy, they begin to get worried about the idea of their child not coming out normal. And honestly, that is a very good reason to be scared, because you are actually talking about the idea of giving birth to another Clayface. But even though they're very worried of the possibility of their child not coming out normal, they're still excited about the idea of doing this together. They are excited about the idea of being parents, being a family. Now, before we are able to continue to dive deeper into that flashback, we jump back over to Batman, who's still with Lady Clayface, where once she does wake up, she tries to attack him again, but then she's unable to actually fight him because she took so much damage in that battle earlier. But while she collapsed once again on the ground, she does tell Batman, "You could deem my baby to death." And so now we officially know that Abattoir is the one who's holding on to her child. But again, why does Abattoir have the child of Lady Clayface. But before we are able to get that answer, we jump back over to Abattoir, who's still kind of giving that story over to the baby of Lady Clayface in Clayface 3. Now, we do learn that when she had given birth to him, it was really more just a bunch of clay falling out of her body. But on top of that, they have no idea if it is a boy or a girl. Now, for me personally, it does kind of look like a boy, but right now, apparently, it is genderless. Either way, we do get confirmation that Abattoir is holding on to the child of Lady Clayface in Clayface 3. But again, why? There has to be a reason why. But as we jump back over to Batman, we see Batman finding a note on Lady Clayface that does tell Batman that yes, she had a child, but that child is currently with Abattoir. Now, this leads into us finally finding out why was she coming after Batman for? Why does Abattoir have the baby of Lady Clayface in Clayface 3? Well, let me explain. Now remember, when it came to two Clayfaces, they were living in a cave away from Gotham City as a way to hide from all their problems. Except when they came back home to their cave, they realized that, well, their baby is missing. Somebody had kidnapped the baby. And the question is right now, who? Who had kidnapped their child? And so when it came into Clayface, they realized it was Abattoir. But he said, listen, if you want your kid back, you have to help me achieve two of my goals. The first is that you got to kill off Batman. I want him dead. And second thing is, I want you guys to find my cousin Graham. Because again, for Abattoir, his main goal is to kill off his entire family. And Graham right now is his next target, but the Batman stands in his way. And so that is why you have the Clayfaces going after Batman, but also going after Graham. And so really the rest of the book is really more of Clayface 3 delivering Graham over to Abattoir. But the problem is for Clayface 3, even though he hands over Graham to Abattoir, he's still mad at Abattoir for kidnapping his child. And so you have Clayface 3 trying to kill off Abattoir, but you didn't have Batman step in. Now, while you have Batman and Clayface 3 fighting against each other, you didn't have Abattoir try to run over Batman and Clayface 3. You do have the two characters being able to dodge the car, and Abattoir is able to get away. Now, the only reason why he was able to get away because the baby was about to fall on some phone lines and most likely be killed by those phone lines. And so once again in Knightquest, you have Batman going out of his way to save a baby. That is now twice where Batman has saved a baby in Knightquest alone. Either way, after doing that, Abattoir was able to get away once again, but this time with his cousin Graham, and most likely is going to kill off Graham. But on top of that, for Clayface 3, he still wants to leave with his son and not go back to jail. But for Batman, it's kind of like, no, you gotta go back to jail. You just kidnap a guy and hand that guy over to another villain. Like, you broke some laws there, dude. You gotta go to jail. I understand you hate the idea of your child being locked away as well because it's a clay baby. But unfortunately, you gotta go to jail for your crimes. And so you have Batman being able to just take down Clayface 3 in a matter of a few panels. And so just like that, Clayface 3, Lady Clayface, they're in jail. Their baby is going somewhere to hopefully be cured of its clay problem. Now, for me personally, the book ends on one heck of a note because we do learn that Abattoir has put Graham in some kind of torturing device. So right now, Graham is laying on top of a bunch of oversized nails. Now, right now, he's not being punctured by those nails yet. But the thing is, on top of him is a weight system. Every single hour, that weight system will get heavier and heavier on his body, pushing him down on the actual nails. And so each hour he'll go through a slow and painful death until it reaches the point where he is officially killed off by those nails. It's one heck of a way to die. Like, this man is truly messed up. But either way, this is where we're going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see you next time. Later.